live.
Correct.
Okay. So great to speak to you today, Trevor, and thanks very much for your time speaking to me about sales methods and plan to close and Org Chart Plus. I think it'd be really helpful to just know a little bit more about what Dovetail Systems does and where you're based, and what sort of size sales force you have.
Okay. Well, Dovetail basically provides enterprise payment systems to large global and regional banks. So anything that's not involved with the card processing, that's the kind of payment processing that we do for banks. So we have quite a, I guess, experienced professional sales force that is targeted at the top 250 banks in the world. They're very long sales cycles where we're trying to strategically re-engineer the bank or understand their strategic requirements and payments, and then we hopefully match those requirements and are selected as the vendor for them. The implementation of those systems is a very long life cycle, and then payment systems live for probably another generation. So they're quite strategic, large ticket sales. Globally, we have probably about 25 salespeople. That's expanded significantly in the 5 years that I've been with Dovetail. And we selected sales methods as a way of the sales management getting a more standardized view of all the opportunities across the sales force, and being able to present those opportunities to management and what kind of problems we were trying to deal with, how well we knew the organization, how we knew those problems. So it's really used as a checklist and a consistency of process across an expanding sales force.
Okay, no, that's good. And so is your role managing the overall team as well as marketing, or are you focused purely on the sales side?
I used to report into the head of sales, and I basically run the I guess technical operations of the sales force. So Salesforce itself, as well as a lot of management reporting, that tends to has stayed with me. But yeah, I'm primarily focused on marketing, but have the technical skills to have done the Salesforce side. When we looked at, I think there was always a challenge to try and make Salesforce more useful to the salespeople. And one of those things was to expand the account planning capabilities. And so we looked at a number of different tools for that. But one of the differentiating factors in selecting sales methods was it was very straightforward and integrated with Salesforce. So we weren't looking at a side application. All the data resided in Salesforce. Yeah. And we could pick and choose how deeply we wanted the salespeople to integrate this into their day-to-day work. So, some salespeople use it, completely, and schedule tasks and do all of the planning. Others, as long as they've filled out the basic matrix that gives the dashboard that our sales management can use going forward. So it was a very good lightweight tool, but also with some advanced features that some individual salespeople could take advantage of.
Yeah, and did you implement? I know that you're using both Org Chart Plus and Plan to Close. So did you implement them both at the same time, or did you start with one and then introduce the other one later?
We went and implemented them both at the same time. It was a really quick turnaround in how we selected it. It was being able to download the evaluation version from the Salesforce App Store. Yeah. I got that running up probably at the beginning of December and I evaluated that, had a meeting with my sales management in middle of December. We bought the licenses and went live and rolled that out in the beginning of January at our sales kickoff.
Wow.
And rolled that out to, I think at the time it was 15 salespeople. And so we all had them at the sales kickoff in one place, and we brought in SalesMethods to do an in-depth training. And so basically everybody was live as of the middle of January, both on Plan to Close and Org Chart Plus. Over the probably next 3 months, we found that there was some customization we needed to do to the questions that more appropriately fit our business. And so that's something I was able to do myself, basically with some basic HTML tools. So we went through and edited the questions that the salespeople would use. And then it was probably another month or so where we went into the review cycles on our pipeline calls of actually calling up the plan to close for the opportunities. And now we use that on a WebEx where the head of sales who runs the pipeline calls will call up the individual opportunity and walk through both the plan to close and just make sure that the salespeople are up to speed on their questions. And then the Org Chart Plus, which really gives us the, do we know the individuals in the organizations? Do we know the influencers? Do we know the right people? And it's been a wonderful tool that basically can help get down to the, you might know it in your head, but is it on paper, and can we share that with the CEO who's going into the account, or do anybody else know people in the organization or people in influencers? So it's shared information rather than anecdotal information over the coffee. So that's really how we use it, and it was bedded into the organization in probably 4 or 5 months, from a cold start to the top accounts to basically every opportunity has both a plan to close and an Org Chart Plus. And I think the salespeople don't adopt a tool unless it's easy for them. And I think both the native HTML version that has come out has really increased the adoption, that there's no problems. It's an easy process for them to learn how to use it, and it doesn't take a lot of additional skills. And so we found the adoption curve for this product, both of them, to be very high across all of the salespeople.
Yes, and I think, one of the challenges, as you say, is actually providing value in a CRM system to your sales team. And do you think this actually made them start using Salesforce even more than they had before? Because they had a real tool that was providing them, some benefit and consistency.
Yeah, I think definitely from the sales management and the management point of view, it really helps consistency across all of the opportunities. So I think it is, I wouldn't say an advantage to the salesperson, but it definitely reduces the reporting burden. Is that anytime any of the senior management who have access to Salesforce can go into an opportunity and understand where we are. That eliminates late night calls to the salespeople. It increases the transparency across the organization of what's going on in an opportunity. It gives, I guess from myself in marketing, the ability to go into existing accounts and know, I know a lot of people, being able to contact them about new research. So it gives everybody an up-to-date view of the opportunity. And that has reduced, I think, a lot of what used to be emails, conversations, one-on-ones, where we just have that now. So it probably hasn't reduced the workload or the burden on the salesperson directly, but it has increased the headache that goes around with trying to understand the opportunity.
Yeah, and in terms of sort of streamlining communications and reducing maybe a little bit of duplication via email, etc.
Exactly, and especially when opportunities are becoming a challenge or maybe going sideways. It gives very do we actually understand the problem? Do we understand the influencers? Do we understand the organizational need? And it allows us to, or allows the sales management to put those questions back to the salespeople and basically going do we really understand this? And it's a nice structure rather than random conversation. So it just gives a nice workbook plan to work from. That's consistent across all the opportunities.
Yeah, and would you say that you use it within sort of performance reviews as well to maybe help identify particular areas? I know that you said that salespeople were seasoned sales professionals, so maybe they don't need so much guidance. But have you found that it kind of gives you a better view of, you know, which people perhaps are better at qualifying, which people are better at creating the relationships? And sort of looking at it from a more consistent point of view.
Yeah, I think it's in terms of our salespeople. They've been here again. They come with the Rolodex and the knowledge of some of the accounts. It is definitely for the challenging opportunities, just a way of making sure we've covered all of our bases.
Yeah.
And being able to, you know, if we don't know the answer, we need to go out, you know, find out and get it. And rather than a notepad and a piece of paper and a conversation or an email, it's a structured way of collecting that information. And I think is used to a varying degree in, I guess, performance review and management. But for the accounts that go well and for the salespeople that understand it, it's a very structured approach. For the ones that need assistance, it's just an aid memoir, kind of going, well, you know, next week you need to come back with these answers. So it gives them a structure to go to the account and have that review and go, well, do I understand what you're trying to do? And then bring that information back in a structured way and get consistency across the accounts. But definitely used as a tool to focus on the problem areas, but have that consistency so that no account or opportunity is missed. Yeah.
No, that sounds, I mean, it sounds like you implemented it very quickly. So one of my questions was, you know, how much training or coaching did people need? So it sounds like they didn't need an awful amount. And it was great that you were able to combine that with your sales kickoff so that everybody got the same information at the same time.
That's right, because I think it's very neutral. I think one of the things that we liked as well is the tool is very neutral in terms of the sales methodology it uses, and we were able to adapt that to fit to our organization. So there's you know, a half dozen out there that you could probably adopt, and some tools are more strict in forcing you down one methodology or the other. This was very nice and neutral. And the salespeople, being more experienced, were able to adapt. You know, they had no vested interest in following one or the other, and so it was very quick. They could understand what we were trying to achieve and not put a very heavyweight process in place. So they were able to get up to speed on the plan to close, and realize that it is just a structured way of thinking about an account, and being able to put the information in a very lightweight way into Salesforce was excellent. Being able to share that with management was excellent. The plans, the training that we received on that was, again, very, I think it was a half day focused on plan to close. The tool is very straightforward and allows you to get up to speed. On the Org Chart Plus, there's probably a little bit more training involved there. Okay. Just because it is being able to pull in all the contacts, create the relationships, and as we bring on new salespeople, again, it's probably a 30 to 45 minute walkthrough, and they are up and running and off they go, being able to manage it themselves. And we have a Salesforce administrator, and again, we find that there isn't the continuous need for training. I've seen other tools. It is really I forgot how to do this. Can you remind me? And that's the nature of the support calls. And we've been able to do a number of things with the reporting on them. Which accounts have an updated org chart, which accounts, when was the plan to close updated to keep, so management can keep on top of the active opportunities and org charts. So that's been really good. We haven't had to, from an admin point of view, we really haven't had to do anything in terms of additional training. It's very straightforward.
Excellent. And how, what do you, I guess you said you were looking at a couple of other products. So was it mainly the sort of neutrality around the sales process and the fact that you could tweak that process to suit your own needs that was the kind of main benefit?
Yeah, I think that there was two main features that set it apart. Is one, it was native in Salesforce. That was all the data was in Salesforce, and it was using the native tools of the Salesforce platform, and that at the time was the deciding, I guess the majority of the deciding factor. The nice bonus was the neutrality and being able to customize the questions that are asked in Plan to Close. So that was, I guess, another nice bonus. But it was very, very straightforward and didn't require any of these sort of admin capabilities, or we're a small organization of about 250 people and very limited sort of admin resources. And so being so straightforward was very key to me in being able to get that in and up and running.
Excellent. And do you think was there anything unexpected or challenging about the project?
It was, I think there was, while we were getting up to speed, I think SalesMethods was very responsive in answering some of the questions as you get used to a new tool. Some things work the way you expect. Other things, it's like, well, how does that work? We found the support to be very efficient, being able to email a question, get the answer back, and then go, okay, that's the way it works. Now that makes sense. So there was one or two areas as we were getting up to speed and learning the tool that we had some questions, and the support was excellent in being able to get the answer we needed, understand how it works, and then sort of build the reports and explain that to our salespeople on how it actually works. So I wouldn't say anything surprising, but just getting familiar with a new tool. Yeah. And everything was available at our fingertips or at the end of an email. So that was we weren't having to wait for any length of time before we get the answer back.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and that sounds good. That's what we like to hear. And I suppose what would be nice to know is whether you have any particular advice for any other organisations that are thinking about implementing a similar tool to Plan to Close, or just using Org-Chart Plus.
I think again is not overthinking it. I've seen a number of different implementations of sales planning methodologies, and making it lightweight and embedding that into the review process of your pipeline is probably the key thing that we focused on here. Is like I said, we use this on a WebEx or a Google Hangout. We have our sales team, and my sales management is sharing their screen as they go through the opportunities, and basically wandering through the active review of the Plan to Close and the Org-Chart Plus for every opportunity that we're reviewing, and making sure the salespeople almost feel guilty for not updating or making that information available. And the salespeople have taken very well to that because they know it's going to be visible to everyone. And if you haven't got the answer to that question about customer need, or do we know the organization right, or where are the influencers, what's that person's opinion of us, I think has been a great way to embed the tool into our organization. And it's not seen as, there's a bit of it's not used as it's used in a positive way. Is like, how can we help you, find out that influencer? Do you need, okay, well, we know a consultant is in that organization. We'll go find out what their opinion and who they know. So it's an opportunity for the salespeople to exchange ideas about the account, or wider knowledge about that. So it's used in a positive way rather than as a tool that becomes a burden. So that's probably the biggest advice we get, is embed it to your organization and make sure people know it's being used and looked at. Yeah.
And I think I've worked with so many companies where unfortunately senior management isn't always engaged in the implementation of the software tool, and so it does get left by the wayside. So it's great to hear that it's being used so positively and actively.
Yeah, being able to export the Plan to Close in a PDF and being able to provide that as a, this is what we're going into. So the CEO will receive that if he's going on, advanced stage prospects. If he's going to see them, that's what he expects on his desk before he walks into the account. So we can understand, we have too many prospects to be holding in his head. He understands them very well, but he needs the detail, and that's the form we use to brief him before he goes into an account. And so that's actually been a time saver, because he knows it's going to be in a structured format. He's going to receive that well in advance of the meeting, and then comes prepared with everything we need to know about the account. We print out the org chart plus. He understands the players, and so it's a perfect pack that you can give to any one of our senior management or even board members when they're dealing with the banks, to go in there and be prepared. And that's just a lifesaver.
Yeah. No, it sounds good. And I suppose that probably covers most of my questions. Let me just double check that I haven't missed anything particular. I think we covered that. Oh yeah, I suppose. Well, obviously you've been speaking from a management position. Do you think, what would you say is the impression of the people on the ground who are actually using the tool? Did anybody particularly struggle with it, or did most people adopt it quite easily because it is easy to use?
Yeah, I think one of the funny things is salespeople, when they were starting to go, when we were especially using the org chart plus, they couldn't believe it was that easy.
Oh, great.
So they would try and do something and phone me up and ask me, and I'm like, you just drag and drop it. And they couldn't quite, and they go, oh, okay, if I just drag it. I thought it was going to be a lot more complicated. So it was getting them over that hurdle where I think they might have had previous tools in different technologies that were a lot more cumbersome. So if just going, it is that easy, and just realizing that, if I change somebody to be reporting to somebody in org chart plus, if I drag and drop that, it will actually update Salesforce. And that was new to them. In plan to close, just making sure that they understand this is meant to be a lightweight tool, and you put in as much as you need to explain to management of what's going on in the particular opportunity, what's going on with the particular issues. You can use it if you want in our organization to track how you're going to find that information and give you a structured way and some deadlines so you don't miss anything. They were, so that was taking some salespeople, I wouldn't say out of their comfort zone, but it gave them, oh wow, this tool can help me structure my day and my calls all the way down to, so my activities are there, so I know what I have to do for the next pipeline call in 2 weeks. Some people have adopted that. They've never used Salesforce in that way. So it helped them structure it. Other people just use it in a more lightweight way. So we were able to adapt to the different needs of salespeople rather than a one-size-fits-all. And that's been very good. But they've all used it to various degrees. But no major surprises and no major bottlenecks or problems in uptake, because it is very straightforward.
Yes, okay, and I suppose, you've talked about the simplicity. You talked about the fact that it's lightweight. What do you see? You've obviously sort of see that you've got a lot more structure and consistency now in the pipeline. What do you think of the long-term benefits of using org chart plus?
Well, the one thing that we've noticed is that we've rolled this out to our salespeople, and we're seeing benefits in rolling this out because we have I guess pre-sales people that support individual bids as well as project managers that end up coming on site. So our plan is to roll access out to the tool to the pre-sales people and some of the project management people, just so that they're more involved in understanding the detail of the opportunity, the challenges, so that when they're pitching, it's kind of almost a shared understanding of the opportunity and where we're at and the people involved. So that is I guess the plan for this year is we'll be getting more licenses to roll those out to the wider group. So we'll probably move from 25 salespeople to probably 35 to 40 people in total having access to the tool and updating it. Knowing the org charts, knowing who the players are, so you can pitch the individual messages to understand who likes us, who we're competing against, whose opinion we're trying to change,
Yes.
And use that as a shared playbook and an understanding of the opportunity from the plan to close. What are the bank needs, so that there doesn't have to be more meetings or turning it into an email and distributing that to the wider team that would be going into the opportunity. So that's the longer term plan for how we want to use the tool. Basically, having more people access to it, and that's what we're doing in the next sort of over the summer.
Yeah, yeah. And how do you? I mean, do you think it's actually reduced the sales cycle, or is it, or do you think it just feels maybe more professional and smoother to the customer? I guess there's an impact on the customer's impression as well, how you deal with them.
I think for our particular challenge was when we were initially looking at the tool, we probably had about 10 salespeople, is being able to scale that team and have a consistent result across. We're global, so we have salespeople in Asia, salespeople across Europe, salespeople across the US and Canada. And for sales management to be able to deliver a consistent process and outcome of opportunities was because it was being able to let us scale in being able to handle a lot more consistently and not take up a lot of management time. So from a sales management point of view, it was just a good way to structure, and we need to know this information on every one of our opportunities. It gives that checklist. Have we thought about this? Do we understand their need? Do we understand the people? Do we understand? When you are scaling the number of opportunities and late stage opportunities that we were dealing with, that was really the tool helped us face that challenge of scaling.
Okay. Well, I think that probably brings me to the end of my questions. Really good to hear that that you are, finding both products as valuable as you'd hoped, and that the support is also very good. And do you have an account manager that looks after you and all of your needs, or how does the support side work?
The support side, I must say, we very rarely have a need to interact. We get regular updates of the software, so we get a notification from Salesforce when there's new features and we can upgrade. The only time I have really any questions or need to come back, I think it's Richard I deal with, is when we get more licenses as we're expanding our sales team. And those are provisioned very quickly, and we just tend to be a happy client that doesn't need much hand-holding. And they've always been there when we did a refresher course at our last sales get-together. And again, that was, we were able to find a date that worked, come in for a half day just to refresh and level set across all of our salespeople and some new ones. And so it's just expanding the use and making sure that everything's we're learning any of the new features, just updating everybody. But again, I think that was a 2-hour session at one of our sales kickoffs just recently, and we'll probably do one this time next year when we get everybody back together. So it's fairly lightweight, but always very responsive.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. No, really good to hear that. And yeah, best of luck with your growing team. And I hope that all goes smoothly as well. So yeah, thanks very much for your time today, and really appreciate you hanging out with Sales Methods.
Not a problem at all. Thank you very much.
Very much. Bye, Trevor. Bye.
Bye.